On February 23rd of this year, my next guest made a decision. He started working out again. And what happened next is exactly the kind of inspiring story the Fitness is Our Business podcast exists to share. Because, as you would expect, his body began to transform, but more importantly, his mind sharpened. A man who was already operating at a high level found another gear. I want you to remember that thought as I welcome you once again to the show. I am your host, Victor Fernandez, founder of Fernandez Fit and best-selling author, and I help busy professionals thrive in their demanding personal and professional lives by taking control of their health and fitness. This is your first time listening to the show or watching it on YouTube, welcome. But whether you're new or you've been following for a while, make sure to click the like button, leave a review, subscribe to the show, and share it far and wide because more people need to learn that fitness is our business. Now, as I alluded to in the intro, my next guest understands the impact health and fitness has on all facets of life. Dr. Matthew Platz is an economic innovator, a workforce development leader, and executive director of the Corey Higher Education Council in my old stomping grounds of Erie County, Pennsylvania. As the primary architect for CATCH, which stands for Corey Area Technical and Cyber Hub, he spearheads complex, high-stakes community transformations that involve tech labs, robotics innovation, and commercial aviation pipelines. In other words, he knows how to build things that change the trajectory of entire communities. And he's even got a lot more information he's going to share with us as well today. So please welcome to the show, Dr. Matthew Platz. Matt, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Vic.
Well, first off, you mentioned to me off air that your commute to and from work is going to become significantly shorter moving forward here. Do you want to share with our audience why that is?
Sure. So back in 2023, I took the job at the Corey Higher Education Council. That was with the understanding that I lived in the city of Erie, which is about 35, 40 minutes, depending on driving time and where the state police are positioned on my way. But it created a situation where I had to drive some distance before I could get to work. So I left pretty early and, coming back from work, I got back here pretty late. So recently I was offered and I have accepted the position of executive director at the Erie Center for Arts and Technology. That's about 2 miles from my house. So on good mornings, I might actually run to work if there's a shower there.
I know this much. The only person who may have a shorter commute to work than you is me. Because
Yeah.
mine's about 6 steps to my left.
That's a great commute.
So if I get stuck in the hallway and I'm late, it's because the dogs have attacked.
Now, I would say that the commute, it wasn't bad for most of the year. Our winters up here in Erie County are pretty harsh, and that can be difficult. But the commute was actually a good way for me to clear my mind after work and get me thinking about the day when I drove down. So it wasn't too bad. It put a lot of miles on my vehicle, and I'm looking forward to not doing that as much.
Absolutely. I don't blame you one bit. I'm glad I can walk to work, which is nice. But anyway, I obviously alluded to it at the beginning of the intro. February 23rd, kind of a milestone day for you. Got back into the gym, started getting back to really taking control of your health and wellness. For most people, myself included, there's often a triggering point or a turning point that says, you know what, it's now or never. For me, it was when my now 16-year-old son was born, and I was afraid I wouldn't be alive long enough to watch him get to 16, much less any older than that. What was it for you that made February 23rd of this year that day where this is when it's going to happen?
Sure. I'm going to dig in here a little bit, Vic. I'm going to open the book a little bit, and I don't do that very frequently. The personal kind of details of what has gone on in my life and how I got there. Back in 2022, I went to the gym for the first time, and this was since I was a young kid, running track in high school. I got back in the gym because we were coming out of COVID, and I had gotten the shots and the boosters and all the stuff, but I had COVID 3 times, and I can tell you that coming out of that, I felt horrible. It just never really, that people talk about long COVID. I'm not sure if that's what it was, but I just felt run down. I was out in my driveway, trying to shovel the snow. We talked about the snow off air. And I was losing my breath. And back in 2022, I said to myself, okay, I'm going to go to the gym and do this. Now, one thing you mentioned in the intro, and it's an important thing that you probably deal with quite a bit, is you said busy professionals. When I took the job down in Corey and we talked about that commute, it took that time where I had normally been going to the gym either before or after work and compressed my day. And I stopped. And I just stopped. And you know, you get busy with your life, you get going with the things you have going on. Kids have sports, you're driving all over. You get to a point sometimes where the only time you have to fit the gym in may be like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and I just wasn't into it then. But where we're going to dig into the personal piece here is, January, February 2023. My wife and I had a discussion, and that discussion kind of focused on the idea that I had been leaving work and going to my favorite watering hole. And the frequency of the times that I was doing that had increased. And I didn't really realize, okay, this is affecting my wife until she sat me down and said, you know what, we met over a beer. We like to go have a beer. I still drink beer. But it was the frequency and the amount. And it was, sometimes when the people you love the most look at you and look you in the eyes and tell you that you're hurting yourself and you're hurting the family, that can be hard to take. And I sat with it for a while, and I thought back to the person I was in 2022, the person that was going to the gym and how I started to feel. And to me, at that moment, I thought, well, number one, I don't want to hurt my family. They were concerned about it. Even my children were concerned about it. And I said, we're going to stop that cycle of just driving to the bar after I get out of work. And we're going to fit the time in where I had set aside working out. And we're going to put that back in. Now, on February 23rd, I went back in the gym, and that day hurt, man. And that day can be very difficult for people, right? Like you wake up, and I don't remember being that sore because I'm 48 now. I'm not younger anymore, but that soreness, it can chase you, right? It can put in your mind, I'm not going to keep doing this. But the great thing is that from February 23rd until now, I'm in the gym probably 3 to 5 days a week. And the consistency is there, and it's taken a lot of time. You probably experienced this. It's easier to get out of shape and go back. It's probably like 2 weeks. If you step out of the gym, you're going to feel horrible. But if you stay consistent, and I have been able to do that, and figuring out how to fit it into my busy life, it just has to be there, or I don't feel right. Days off, sometimes I'm like, oh man, I should have probably went today. But yeah, so that February 23rd day, it was shortly after my wife and I had a discussion, and here we are now. And I'm seeing real results. We're almost 6 months in, and it's crazy how it's working.
100%. And I was nodding my head when you were talking about that first day heading back to the gym and how sore you felt and how intimidating a feeling that can be to someone to think, I'm going to feel like that every time I go. Who in the world wants to do that? And
Right,
it's
right.
and let's face it, we as human beings, for something that we're not fully committed to yet, it's real easy to come up with an excuse to not do it or to stop doing it. I've told people all the time when I hired my first coach, it was really my first full day of real intelligently crafted and smart, training. I mean, still physical, but much more in tune with what I needed. It was 10 minutes on a treadmill because that's all I could do. And I was sore, just like you said, I was sore afterwards as well. I mean, who in their right mind would think 10 minutes on a treadmill going at 2 miles an hour would leave you as sore as it left me? But it really did. And I fully believe, and you can attest to this as well, that after a while, and not very long for that matter, it becomes less and less of a physical challenge and more of a mental and emotional challenge. Because let's face it, most people, there's days plenty of days I don't want to do
Sure, sure.
it. So people think that I love to live in the gym. Wrong. Could be the furthest from the truth, but I like what happens when I do. I know for you, somebody who can start with a project, we talk, obviously with what you do, your career, it's very technical, which means there is a process
Hmm.
that takes place step by step by step. that mirrors what we do with health and wellness. I talk to people all the time about, look at it from a professional perspective. If you took the same approach, the same off and on approach in your professional setting as you do in your personal life, how good would you be doing in business right now? Not very good. So talk about the connection between your career, what you do, how technical it is, how process driven it is, and how it translates to what you do from a health and wellness perspective.
Sure, sure. So the example that I can think of, right away is that a lot of the processes and the things that we're doing in the Corey Technical Cyber Hub starts with research, right? We're not guessing at the training modules that we're building towards within the physical construction of the building. It's not like, hey, I threw a dart and I chose aviation. No, there's some research that's behind it, and there's a need that's behind it. We talk to the employers, we do the background, we figure out where, okay, is there an employer that if I do this 2 week training module, hires the student at the end of the road, and they immediately start a job doing much better than a lot of people with that type of training have done in the past. So the research is done prior to the activation of what we're trying to build towards in the building. Similarly to that, when you're working out, right? I see it all the time, and I'm one of these people. There's a debate, right, about talking to other people in the gym and like, oh man, don't do that. Like, you're not doing that right. But if you just walk into a gym, sometimes those machines are very difficult to understand. And even I've been in a lot of gyms, and sometimes I'm like, I got to watch somebody else do that so I know how to use that thing. But you don't just go in and start lifting weights willy-nilly. There's a process to it. You talk about your height, your weight, where you are, what your physical fitness level is currently, and you build from there and figure out how to put a program together that's actually helping you. You can't just walk in and start lifting 50-pound dumbbells and think you're going to succeed or do something right. Even if you can, you might be able to walk in with a 50-pound dumbbell and curl it. But if you just do 3 curls and then you set it back down, that's not the research or the background that you need to be able to be successful in the gym and continue a program that gets you where you want to be. So those two things are very similar in my business world and the gym.
100%. You mentioned obviously the old debate of talking to people. I can say this much: I've been called antisocial, which I'm far from antisocial. But
Right.
when the earbuds go in, we could have an explosion in the building, and I'm not moving. I'm not even looking in any direction to see what the commotion is all about. I'm in the zone, which is why I work in my own gym, because it's just me and the weights and whatever's going on in my head. You know, so for you, talk about what the process was like. Obviously, you had that very life changing really conversation with your wife, which is awesome. I've had similar conversations in the past with my wife when I wasn't the nicest human being to be around, because I didn't like who I was, and it was much easier to be mean to everybody else who loved me because they were going to love me nonetheless than it was to actually look myself in the mirror and claim responsibility. But talk about what that was like from day one, and when did it really sink in for you that, hey, yeah, I was really sore that first day, but look at me now. Look what I've been able to accomplish to this point.
Sure, sure. So I would say that it really sunk in when I did take stock of where I was and what I was doing and the amount of alcohol I was drinking. And you hear about people who, are termed functional alcoholics. And if I look very clearly at myself during that time, I was still getting up and going to work. I was still getting things done. I wasn't in danger of getting fired because I was drinking too much or anything like that. But the really fired in when, okay, there were days, weeks at a time where I didn't drink at all. And there was a mental clarity that hit when I stopped consuming so much alcohol. Alcohol's poison, right? You're putting a poison into your body. Your body has to deal with it in a certain way. Certainly not helpful from a health and wellness perspective. It does have a social element to it. I still have my buddies that I catch up with every now and then, and that's good for your health too. But the clarity that came in, and then doing a little bit of research, like we talked about, there's obviously supplements that you can use to maximize what you're doing in the gym. And after reading quite a few different articles, some of them medical articles, different trainers, different things, I added creatine to my supplement pile. and it may just be a placebo effect, but I believe very strongly that that has laser focused my mind. I can think on a task, and I used to have a little bit of what I think is like ADHD. I'd be like, okay, I'm working on something, and then an email would come up. Okay, I'm going to answer that, and it's all over the place. I believe that the working out and the supplement pile that I'm working with, just protein and creatine, nothing fancy, nothing outrageous, but that creatine, adding it in, it was really like laser focused mind, and my work has been tremendous as a result of that. So it's probably all the things together: working out, feeling better. I'm getting my mile time back to where it was, which is crazy at 48 years old. It's not as easy as it once was, but that's the connection that I can make. Everything is more clear for me on most days.
So how do you stay away from the the default excuses, if you will? I don't have time for this. I'm too busy. I've got the family. I mean, I spent 20 years making those excuses like that, and I wasted those years. It's really my one big regret in life that I've shared many times over. It's real easy to fall into, I don't have to go today. I'm real busy today, so I'll go tomorrow, and then the next day passes, and so on. How have you managed to really stay disciplined, consistent, and intentional, knowing full well, like you said earlier, it doesn't take much to get off track?
Well, I think the big thing is that consistency. We talk a little bit about it. You just find the time. You can fool yourself. I'm sitting here. My cell phone's right here. If I have time to sit for an hour scrolling on my phone, like people have no problem doing, I have time to get to the gym, and that can sometimes mean in a busy professional's life 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. My gym is open 24/7. Sometimes it's unstaffed, but I can swipe in and go in. There is no excuse for not taking the time, at least to get a little bit of time in. And honestly, some of the exercises and weights that I'm lifting, days after, it hurts like crazy even still. But if you go in and you do 20 minutes on your elliptical or treadmill to just get your blood flowing, that soreness will go away. But it's that one, that action of just sticking with it and maintaining the consistency. Days off recently have looked like me helping my daughter's softball team, running around on the field, throwing the ball with the girls. I added that to, like, okay, I exercised today. It wasn't as intense as going in the gym, but it's movement, it's getting the blood flowing a little bit, loosening up your muscles and kind of working. So you find ways to do it, and you find ways to fit it into the schedule. There's 24 hours in a day. You No one can say, you know what, I didn't have any time. It can, but it does sometimes look like taking the time out of your day. Maybe when you're sitting down to watch TV, you're there instead.
Yeah, 100%. It was funny. Just earlier today, a good buddy of mine who's just got a real unique sense of humor, shall we say, on social media. His life is to entertain, and he certainly does that. Where he made a post on Facebook that read something to the effect of, "If you have the hours to do your research to prepare for your fantasy football draft,
Yeah.
you can get a workout in." I was like, I'll be damned if that's not right. I'd never thought of that. But yeah, I mean, we make time, we carve out time for those things that we find important to us. And one thing I've noticed, whatever those important, you mentioned, obviously spending time with your daughter and her softball team. With my kids all grew up playing sports. My son is doing PA now for baseball. So we're actively involved, and I've noticed that those more practical applications to our life, if you will, those are the times when I realize just how far I've come, as opposed to, oh, I can lift 50 pounds. Last week I was only doing 40. That's not how I gauge it. It's, what am I doing out in the community or with my family that is physical, it's active, and I don't feel like I got hit by a bus after doing it. Where have you seen yourself in just practical everyday life where you're like, man, if I hadn't gotten into shape, how bad would this be right now?
Absolutely. One of the coolest parts about it is, and I stress this to people all the time, I am just generally stronger, and it's noticeable. Like, okay, a bag of mulch out in the yard. Like, I can lift that with one arm. Like, I could throw up over my shoulders. Where I know that before I got back in the gym, I would have struggled a little bit. You know, I could have still lifted it, but oh my, I'd have been out of breath or whatever walking across, carrying cases of Pepsi or something like that. We had my oldest daughter had her graduation party, and I was in charge of getting all the beverages over to the facility. And I'm like lifting these coolers and throwing them around like it's nothing. The day to day opportunity to kind of feel how much stronger you are and understand that the work that you're putting in is making things easier for you. That is a cool part for me. I just notice it, every day. I like to work out in the yard. It's one of the things that I do when it's nice out during our Erie summers. But just that general stuff. Last weekend, I had to rebuild my stairs out the back, and it's getting taking a 2x6 out of my car. You can just you feel that difference, and it just feels great. The other thing is that at 6 months now, and this is a hard part for folks too. February 23rd to what is say August 13th, it didn't look like I was getting stronger for a long time. I still had the little beer gut. I still had, and it's still there a little bit, Vic. Like I'm still fighting the thing. That's a difficult part for a middle-aged guy, I think. But like when I take my shirt off at the pool or something like that, I'm like, all right, I look okay. That part of it's pretty cool too. And those things all together, and I'm 48, I'm married. I don't need everybody to be like, wow, look at that Adonis. But I don't also wear my t-shirt in the pool. You know what I mean? I'm kind of proud of it. So
100%. Hey, you know
yeah,
what? You worked for it. You have the right to flaunt it.
we
And your
went,
wife can say, "Yeah, he's mine." See,
yeah, we went
I
to,
got that. I caught that
yeah,
stud.
we went to Key West for a little vacation, and we were down there and they actually had a really cool gym. They had everything I needed to do the workout. And I went in there and did the workout and she went to the pool. I got all done and I'm, kind of strutting out to the pool. I'm like, all right, look at that. And she had met a couple that was sitting there, a cop from Baltimore, I think it was, and his wife. And he's like, yeah, I'm not working out on vacation. He's like, you're dedicated. I'm like, you got to fit it in, man. You got to fit that workout in. But yeah, it was cool being able to go to the pools out in Key West and feel like, all right, I look pretty good. And she got to say, yeah, look at him. He's working out even on vacation.
Well, folks, I can vouch because I've been following Matt's transformation on social media, and you can physically see the difference. And that's the cool part. That's why I tell people, like for me, my business, I do a 3 month minimum because I firmly believe in the 30, 60, 90. 30-day mark, you start to feel better. 60-day mark, you start to see why you feel better. And 90-day mark, others start to see why you feel better. I'm a firm believer in that. But again, you might do everything perfectly today, everything perfectly tomorrow, everything perfectly for the next month, and go look in the mirror and be like, I don't see anything. And it's happening, but it just doesn't happen on the fast-paced, timetable that we live, the society we
Yeah.
live in now, where
Yeah.
you can have groceries at your door in less than an hour without leaving my chair right now. So and I think to me that's part of it, in the sense that we've become so fixated on immediacy, on being able to have things not just at our fingertips, but at our front door in practically no time at all. But when I was reading over when you sent me your questionnaire, I'm like, wow, tech labs, robotics,
Yeah. Yeah.
commercial aviation. It's like those are not things that scream immediacy. Those are things that take a lot of planning, like I said, very, very detail and process driven. Again, what attracted you to that industry, what you're in now, and just how has it grown over the years for you personally?
Sure, sure. So yeah, mentioning the research and the time that it takes. Like I started in 2023, we're in 2026, almost 4 years, going on 4 years of work there. And we're not done, right? We're in the process. It's very close. But I think what attracted me to the idea of these tech pipelines, and the short amount of time it takes to get the certificate at the end. I have my PhD. I spent the time getting my undergrad, took a break, got my master's, took another break, went back and got my PhD because I tell everybody all the time, I was just bored and I needed something to occupy my mind. Um, but in one breath, education has given me quite a bit. And without it, I wouldn't have the job that I have. I wouldn't be as successful as I am. But I also understand that there are different types of education. And we have spent as a society for a very long time telling people that if you don't go to a 4 year college, you're never going to be anything. And I understand now that that is absolutely false. We need to get over that quite a bit. And there are great jobs and chances at a very good working life outside of that 4 year window of college. And so I took an interest in these types of training programs because they're shorter, because they cost less, because it gives people who come from a socioeconomic background that may not have 40,000 a year to go to a Mercyhurst or a Gannon or even a Penn State, if you're thinking on a bigger level, they may not be able to financially do that. And it's right in the community of Corey, right? So they could come to our building, they could walk there if they wanted to, and it's either low cost or no cost. So I didn't want those barriers that people may experience to keep them from enjoying the type of education that has given me so many opportunities. And that has been driving me for a long time, not just at this job, but to take the role at the Erie Center for Arts and Technology, a similar organization where I'm going to get to do workforce and put some different ideas in the Erie community in the same way. So that research is a big part of it. Now, one thing I wanted to mention in this, and you probably get to this on a lot of podcasts, that 4 years it wasn't mistake free. It wasn't the whole time, it wasn't easy. We had speed bumps along the way, political pressures, things that went on. That happens when on your gym journey too. And I think back and early on when I started this, I got probably, again, it was probably COVID, but I got sick for like a 2 week period where the gym wasn't there. And no matter if you experience that in work or in life or anything, you have to work through that. Yeah, it kind of sets you back. Maybe you're bench pressing 135 and you go back and it's like, man, I'm back to 125. You cannot let that allow you to discourage your process. Stick with it and then continue to work through it. We've gone through and done applications for grants that were denied. We asked for $1 million. They gave us 20,000. You can't allow that kind of stuff to discourage you. You have to stick with the process, keep working the process, and just not get discouraged. And I think that was a big part of what we've done in the tech space that ties closely to what I've been doing in the gym. I got sick. I can't remember what else. We went on vacation. That adds a challenge. You may have times where life just doesn't give you enough time, depending on what you have going on. You take a couple of days off, work through it, and that's my advice with that. If I had given up when I got sick for 2 weeks, I would have been right back to where I was.
I know and I love having that type of conversation, making that connection between our personal lives and our professional lives, because they do blend together for sure. And I've found myself with quite a few clients, since I do work with more, busy professionals, your entrepreneurs, your business owners. I have had this conversation seemingly on almost on speed dial, just over and over and over again, asking the question, I would ask the client to look at how to grade what their consistency has been like during their health and wellness journey. And if they grade that, yeah, I've been kind of off and on, so I'll give myself a C. So, all right, so apply that same mentality to your business or to your career. If you give yourself that same C, where are you at right now professionally from a success standpoint, from a client fulfillment standpoint? You give them a C effort, they're not going to hire you again.
Right,
It's
absolutely.
going to be a one and done. So it's great to have somebody like yourself talk about, because I think sometimes when I feel like the parent, you say it often enough, they start to tune you out after a while.
Yeah.
And so hearing it from someone else who's in the midst of it, I think tends to hit home a little bit more. Have you seen a marked difference in your productivity in the business world, based on the improvement that you've experienced with your health and wellness journey?
Yeah, I alluded to it earlier with the clarity, which I was approaching everything that we're working on. And yes, I don't know if I have one here. I'm at home today, but I have a list and it's written on a yellow legal pad. And like I had my list, I'm an executive director. I have to be self-directed. There's nobody telling me, hey, you have to get these goals accomplished today. Um, I create that list. I stick to it. What I've noticed since I went back February 23rd till today is that there's a lot more stuff getting crossed off. It's just that clarity of focus. It's the like I'm approaching this today where maybe I had gone in and I'm like, oh, I just don't feel great today. Probably stayed at 1,000 beers too long, and those lists were not getting completed. I gave myself stuff to do that I just wasn't doing. But that clarity of focus is there. I'm like, all right, I'm going to call this person. We're going to move towards this. I'm going to check back in with this person. Like I said, I was going to. More stuff getting crossed off the list. And it's a very clear tie. I know when that started. And it was around that time. Again, and I want to stress this February 23rd, probably until, the middle of March, it wasn't there yet. It was like, ow, I can hardly sit in this chair without like my legs feel like weights, lead balloons. Uh, yeah, so that that's one thing I notice is how quickly things are getting done and completed. Up to that, like this is a big change that's coming, right? I've been there almost 4 years. I'm handing the reins over to the assistant director. I feel confident that we're in a great place. It's not something that's scary to me. I don't feel like I'm leaving the Corey Higher Education Council in the lurch. We're ready to go, and it's firing on all cylinders, just like I am.
Take us on to the new venture, the new professional venture, what that's going to entail. And I know, and one thing that I want to ask you about is when life changes and schedules change, that seems to be the toughest concept that at least I know clients of mine and even myself back in the day have had to try to figure out, all right, how do I incorporate all this stuff now that my schedule is different than what it used to be? So take us through what you're going to be doing moving forward and how your schedule is going to change and how you're going to kind of handle all that.
Sure, sure. So, I didn't bring it up in the interview, like, hey, I got to make sure I cut out a part of time.
I got to work out. I got to
It,
lift weights. Sorry.
it's part of the whole thing. I really think
Yeah.
that employers should look at that. Like, hey, you know what? We'll pay you a 2% bonus if you're a healthy person. You can show us the number of times you checked into your gym. That just makes sense, right? But
Mm-hmm.
with that in mind, yeah, the big change is coming. Where I'm going to be starting at the Erie Center for Arts and Technology up on East Avenue in Erie on September 8th. And that is going to look like a different schedule. Right now, I get up very early to make about a 35, 40, 45-minute ride down to Corey. And then that time is added on the end coming back. Um, in my mind, that particular commute was the big part of why I quit back in 2023. I'm like, oh, I just don't have time now. I'm thinking that this change, it can change your routine, it can change how you feel about things. But I'm thinking that those 35, 40 minutes, it's just going to provide a little bit more time. What I do know is that a lot of times I know when to cut out of work. It's just like, okay, I'm going to set this aside for today. Nothing's going to happen if I do. And it's time to go to the gym and do that before we get home and make dinner and everything. I believe it'll be a little bit easier, but I'm sure that it will have challenges along the way. But it again, it's part of the package that I interviewed. You know what? They got the guy that was a little clearer focused when we did the interview, and I got hired with it. I think they'll appreciate that I'm cutting time out of the day, just like the Corey Hyatt.
Availability and reliability. Those are the two most important abilities we as professionals need to showcase because we know if we're not reliable, if we're not available, it hurts the bottom line.
Right,
Especially
right.
if you're part of a team, and most especially if you're leading a team.
Absolutely.
So take us through what you're going to be doing and what you envision over the next year or 5 years.
Sure, sure. So the Erie Center for Arts and Technology was started by our current mayor, Daria Devlin. She put the pieces in place to model the Bidwell Training Center that's located in Pittsburgh, started by Bill Strickland, a true visionary. And the idea was is that if you put something beautiful and something that people can be proud of in any space, they will take advantage of the opportunities that are provided there. And he in Manchester, near Pittsburgh, he built this beautiful building. He got some investors to come on board, and he was right. He started art programs, throwing clay pots, all that kind of thing. So when Daria started the Erie Center for Arts and Technology, she had that in mind when she was building the building. So it's on East Avenue. It's in an old school, and they beautified the building. They made it really a place that people could be proud to get their training in. Where it differs from what I'm doing right now, very similar organization in a lot of ways. Catch is modeled after that cat. Uh, what is it? Center for Arts and Technology that Bill Strickland started, right? It's modeled after that, so it's a very similar organization. But what I saw when Daria left, and they've had two executive directors since, they haven't really found their footing. They haven't figured out what they're supposed to be or what they're going to be doing. And from what was communicated to me is that there's a real opportunity to build a strategic plan and figure out what it's going to look like in the next 3 to 5 years. When I got down to the Corey Higher Education Council, nobody here knew what it was. In that 3 years, almost 4 years, everybody in this area, in this region, knows what it is and what we do. And we did a great job. And I'm excited about what I'm leaving behind, but I'm also really excited about the challenge of putting ECAT on the map and kind of charting the path. So the organization's a little bit behind the Corey Higher Education Council, which sounds weird. It's located in Erie, lots of advantages to being near the bigger city, but it's not quite there yet. I get to take the reins and kind of control where it goes, and I'm excited about that. Probably it'll look a lot like what happened down at the Corey Higher Education Council.
Absolutely. And finally, before we wrap things up, I know you and your family have a milestone coming up here very soon with your daughter heading
Yeah,
off to college. It's amazing to me how quickly time flies. I've got my youngest going into his junior year of high school. He's taking college courses starting next week. It's all way too fast for me. So, what's it feel like for you? Where the time is numbered. It's down to days, not
yeah.
weeks.
Yeah, it's just really something, and I'm so proud of her. She has been such a phenomenal student through all of her time. She's gotten pretty much all A's, much better than I was. I was just trying to get younger, but man, Vic, I know you see this too. You have kids, but like I still see that little girl. And she's growing up, and she's gonna be great. Taking off next Wednesday to IUP Culinary School in Punxsutawney. But I still see the little girl that I told you off air had mixed some spices together and asked me to put it on the chicken, and it was I was a little worried, but she did very well, and this future that she's building for herself is going to be awesome. And then my younger daughter's starting high school next soon here too at the end of the month. So ninth grade, going up to the big high school. She's ready to go and excited for that. So a lot of changes going on, but we're excited and very proud of our family and what's been going on.
That's awesome. I mean, everything's looking up, and it's always great to see.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just have to stay consistent, no matter what you're doing.
That's life in general, whether it's our health and wellness or anything else we do. The consistency is the key. It's the old tortoise wins the race. Doesn't matter how fast you go, as long as you get there.
Absolutely.
So and that's the key. Well, yeah, Matt, I appreciate your time on here. This has been great. I know we follow each other on social media, but haven't had
Yeah,
too many opportunities to talk since I left Erie now. Good Lord, 8 years ago? It
that's hard
seemed
to believe.
it really is. Well, I knew it was a long time once I started watching Otters games on TV and didn't recognize any of the names.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, they were in
for
fifth
a
grade.
while, yeah, for a while there was a name here or there. Oh yeah, I remember covering him, or I recognize him. Yeah, don't know any of them now. And same thing at Mercyhurst. I see names like I don't know who this is. Yeah, it's a weird feeling, and it tells me just how long it's been since I left. But I absolutely appreciate you coming on. We'll definitely have to do this again.
Absolutely.
Before we wrap it up, I know I've been following your transformation on social media. So if you share with our audience who may be interested to see what you're doing and how well you're doing, where they can find you on social media.
Sure, sure. So those are a couple places. We actually do a radio show every week that features entrepreneurs in our region. You can find that on the Corey Higher Education Council's Facebook page. We're on there. You can find me, Matthew Platz, on Facebook. That's where I post most of the personal stuff, the side by side photos, February 23rd and today. If you want to see what that looks like, that's on there. You can find me through the Corey Higher Education Council and kind of follow along there. But yeah, those photos. I actually have one coming up here that I took a photo yesterday, and I'm hitting that point where I'm like, oh wow, okay, now big change. I'm trying to hold it to the 23rd of August, 10 more days, but I'm like, man, I really want to put that up because I'm proud of it. We'll see if we get to that 6 month window before I post it. Maybe right after this, so people that go look can see if you stick with it, this is what happens. So thank you, Vic.
Absolutely, folks.
I appreciate you having me on.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming on. Once again, folks, obviously you can find Matt on different areas of social media. I'm going to have all that information in the show notes as well. Obviously, you're going to see this on social media, so you'll be able to follow along. But in order to do that, so you know when the show is going to drop, then you need to like the show, click the like button, leave a review, subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. And of course, share it far and wide because there's
Absolutely.
always somebody out there who needs to learn that fitness is our business.